I found it at a flea market, tucked away in a dusty corner. A beautiful antique phone, all polished wood and brass. The seller swore it still worked, said it belonged to his grandmother. Something about it drew me in, a strange sense of nostalgia for a time I never lived. I paid him $20, thinking it would look great on my desk. Little did I know, it was the worst decision of my life. I should have just walked away. It was nearly midnight. The shrill ring sliced through the silence, jarring me awake. I stared at the phone, heart pounding. I hadn't even plugged it in. Hesitantly, I reached for the receiver. "Hello," I whispered into the mouthpiece. A crackling silence met my greeting. Then a faint whisper, almost swallowed by the static, reached my ear. It sounded like a woman's voice, distorted and filled with an unbearable sadness. I couldn't make out the words, but the sheer sorrow in her voice sent a chill down my spine. I slammed the receiver down, but the whispering persisted, now coming from the phone itself. It was as if the voice was trapped inside, desperately trying to escape. The room grew colder, the air thick with a strange, metallic scent. My fear intensified, turning into a paralyzing dread. I tried to get out of bed, but my legs felt like lead. I was trapped, held captive by the unsettling whispers emanating from the antique phone. I covered my ears, but the whispering seemed to penetrate my skull, echoing in my mind. The voice grew louder, clearer. I could now make out the words, "Help me, please, he's coming." The plea was filled with such despair it made my stomach churn. Who was he, and what was coming? The temperature in the room dropped significantly, and I could see my breath in the air. I felt a presence, something malevolent lurking in the shadows, watching me. The whispering stopped abruptly. A heavy silence descended, broken only by the frantic beating of my heart. I cautiously lowered my hands, my eyes fixed on the phone. It was still glowing faintly. Then a new sound emerged, a low, guttural growl coming from the phone. It sounded inhuman, primal. Terror gripped me, squeezing the air from my lungs. I knew instinctively that whatever was coming was not friendly. The growl grew louder, closer. I scrambled back against the headboard, my eyes wide with terror. Suddenly, the phone began to vibrate violently, shaking the nightstand. The brass components rattled, and the wooden base creaked ominously. The room plunged into darkness as the bedside lamp flickered and died. I was enveloped in absolute blackness, punctuated only by the malevolent glow of the phone. I fumbled for my phone, desperate for a source of light, some semblance of normalcy. The screen flickered to life, illuminating my trembling hands. As I pointed the light towards the antique phone, I saw it, a shadowy figure emerging from the receiver, swirling and coalescing into a humanoid form. It was tall and gaunt, with long, spindly fingers that reached towards me. I screamed, dropping my phone in terror. The room was plunged back into darkness, but I could still feel the presence of the figure, its icy breath on my face. A raspy voice whispered in my ear, the same voice that had pleaded for help earlier, but now twisted and full of malice. "You answered," it hissed. "Now you're mine." I thrashed and kicked, trying to fight off the unseen entity, but it was too strong. Icy fingers wrapped around my throat, squeezing the life out of me. I gasped for air, my vision blurring. The last thing I saw before darkness consumed me was the faint, malevolent glow of the antique phone, now silent and still. I woke up gasping for air, my throat raw and sore. The room was bathed in the pale light of dawn. The antique phone sat innocently on my nightstand, looking as if nothing had happened. I stumbled out of bed, my body trembling. I had to get rid of it. I grabbed the phone and rushed outside, intending to throw it in the trash. But as I reached the curb, I hesitated. Something about the phone, its elegant design, its history, still held a strange appeal. I couldn't bring myself to destroy it. Instead, I decided to take it back to the flea market, to return it to the seller. Maybe he knew something about its cursed nature. Maybe he could explain the terrifying events of the previous night. As I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was making a mistake, that I was unleashing something terrible back into the world. The flea market was bustling with activity, but the seller's stall was empty. I asked around, but no one seemed to know who he was. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. A growing sense of dread washed over me. I was stuck with the phone, and I knew deep down that it wasn't finished with me yet. I drove home, the cursed phone sitting ominously on the passenger seat. I decided to lock it away in the attic, hoping to contain its evil. As I placed it in a dusty box, I heard a faint whisper, barely audible. "You can't hide from me," it hissed. That night, the phone rang again. It wasn't coming from the attic. It was coming from my nightstand, right beside my bed. And this time, it wasn't a whisper I heard when I picked up the receiver, but my own voice, distorted and filled with terror, screaming from the other end of the line. I found it in my grandfather's attic, tucked away in a dusty corner, a small, ornate wooden box. It was no bigger than my hand, intricately carved with strange symbols I couldn't decipher. A chill went up my spine the moment I touched it, a prickly feeling like static electricity. Curiosity, or maybe something darker, compelled me to pick it up. It felt strangely heavy, like it held something more than just wood and secrets. Back in my apartment, the box sat on my coffee table, an unsettling presence in the otherwise familiar space. The carvings seemed to shift and writhe under the lamplight, playing tricks on my eyes. I tried to ignore it to focus on a book, but the box pulled at my attention. It was like a whisper in the back of my mind, urging me to solve its mystery. I ran my fingers over the smooth surface, searching for a hidden catch or a seam. Nothing. The wood felt cold, almost unnatural. Hours passed. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, scrutinized. Every creak of the apartment, every rustle of leaves outside my window made me jump. I finally gave in to the compulsion. I had to open the box. My fingers traced the carvings, searching for some clue, some indication of how to unlock its secrets. The wood felt colder now, almost icy. A slight shift, a click. A section of the box slid open, revealing a small, empty compartment. Disappointment mixed with a growing sense of dread. That was it, an empty compartment. I felt a chill despite the warmth of my apartment. It felt wrong, like I'd missed something crucial, something hidden in plain sight. That night, I couldn't sleep. The shadows in my room seemed to twist and writhe, forming grotesque shapes in the corners. Whispers echoed in the silence, just at the edge of hearing. I felt a constant prickling sensation on my skin, as if insects were crawling all over me. The box sat on my nightstand, a dark, silent presence. I could feel its weight, even from across the room. The next morning, I awoke to a sharp, stinging pain in my hand. Looking down, I saw 3 deep, parallel scratches on the back of my hand. They were perfectly straight, too precise to be accidental. I hadn't even felt it happen. Panic began to claw at the edges of my mind. I glanced at the box. Had it done this? I tried to dismiss it as a bad dream, a stray branch scratching me in my sleep. But the unease remained, a knot in my stomach. I avoided looking at the box, shoving it back into the attic. Out of sight, out of mind, right, wrong. The scratches on my hand didn't heal. They festered, becoming inflamed and painful. The whispers returned, louder now, almost coherent. They spoke of pain, of suffering, of the box. I couldn't escape it, even hidden away in the attic. Its influence seemed to permeate the entire house. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know what this box was, what it wanted. I retrieved it from the attic, the wood icy cold against my skin. The whispers intensified, urging me to open it, to explore its depths. The box seemed to pulse with a dark energy. I spent hours examining the box, running my fingers over every intricate detail. Finally, I discovered another hidden panel, a small, almost invisible seam. I pressed it, and another section of the box clicked open. Inside, nestled in velvet, was a single, tarnished key. The key fit a small, keyhole-shaped indentation I hadn't noticed before. I inserted it, turned, and heard a series of clicks and whirs. The box began to unfold, transforming into something. I can't describe it. It was a chaotic jumble of angles and shapes, defying geometry. The whispers became screams. The pain in my hand intensified, spreading up my arm into my chest. My vision blurred. I felt like I was being pulled apart, dissected, rearranged. I don't remember what happened next. I woke up on the floor, the box closed, sitting innocently on the table. The pain was gone, the whispers silent, but something was different. I felt hollow, empty, like a piece of me was missing. I glanced at my hand. The scratches were gone. No trace of them remained. Relief? No, terror. Because I knew deep down they weren't gone, they were just somewhere else. I can feel it sometimes, a phantom pain, a tingling sensation deep inside. And sometimes when I look in the mirror, I see a flicker of movement in my reflection. A shift, a distortion, like something's trying to get out, like something's taken my place. And I know with a certainty that chills me to the bone that whatever was in that box is in me now. I should have listened to the old-timers. They said Hill House breathed, that it held secrets darker than any grave. But I was young, arrogant, thought I could conquer anything. I bought the place for a song, figured I'd flip it, make a killing. Now I wish I'd never laid eyes on that cursed hill. It started subtly, little things. A chill in the air that never seemed to leave, even in the dead of summer. The floorboards creaking at night, even when I was alone. One night I was down in the basement, trying to figure out the plumbing. The air down there was thick, heavy, like something was pressing down on me. There was a small wooden chest tucked away in a corner, covered in dust. Curiosity got the better of me. I wiped away the grime and opened it. Inside, nestled on faded velvet, was a silver locket. It was beautiful, intricate, unlike anything I'd ever seen. Something about it felt wrong, but I picked it up anyway. That night, the nightmares began. Vivid, terrifying dreams of shadowy figures lurking in the corners of the house, whispering my name. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, the locket clutched in my hand. I tried to put it back in the chest, but I couldn't. It was like an invisible force held me back. I felt drawn to it, compelled to keep it close. It was becoming an obsession. I started seeing things in the periphery of my vision, fleeting glimpses of movement that vanished when I turned to look. The whispers started a few days later, faint at first, almost indistinguishable from the wind whistling through the cracks in the old walls. But they grew louder, more insistent. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, always just out of reach. They whispered of secrets, of darkness, of things that lay beneath the house. Things I didn't want to know, but couldn't ignore. The house was alive, I was sure of it, and it was trying to tell me something. I started researching the history of Hill House. I found old newspaper clippings, stories of disappearances, unexplained deaths, whispers of a curse. The original owner, a wealthy recluse, had vanished without a trace a century ago. Some said he'd gone mad, others that the house had swallowed him whole. The locket, I discovered, had belonged to his wife. She had died under mysterious circumstances shortly after he disappeared. The locals believed the locket was the key to the curse. The whispers intensified, becoming clearer, more menacing. They told me to dig, to unearth the secrets buried beneath the house. I resisted at first, but the compulsion was overwhelming. I felt like a puppet on a string, controlled by an unseen force. One night I found myself standing in the backyard, shovel in hand, drawn to a specific spot beneath a gnarled oak tree. The whispers urged me on, promising answers, promising release. I started digging. The earth was cold, damp, like the touch of a corpse. The whispers grew louder, more excited as I dug deeper. After what felt like hours, my shovel struck something hard. I dropped to my knees, clawing away the remaining dirt. It was a wooden box, bound with iron bands. My heart pounded in my chest. This was it. This was what the whispers wanted me to find. I pried open the box. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, was a human skull. Its empty socket seemed to stare into my soul. Clutched in its bony fingers was a small, silver key. The whispers stopped. A chilling silence descended upon the yard. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that this key unlocked something far worse than I could ever imagine. I looked back at the house. The windows seemed to glow with an unnatural light. The whispers started again, but they were different now. No longer whispers, but voices, deep, guttural, coming from within the house. They called my name, beckoning me inside. The key in my hand seemed to vibrate, pulsing with a dark energy. I walked towards the house, drawn by an irresistible force. The front door creaked open as I approached, as if inviting me in. I stepped inside, the key clutched tightly in my hand. The house was colder than ever, the air thick with the smell of decay. The voices grew louder, guiding me down the hallway towards the basement door. I descended the creaking stairs, the key heavy in my hand. The voices were almost deafening now, chanting, urging me forward. I reached the bottom of the stairs and saw it. A small iron door set into the far wall, a door I hadn't noticed before. The key fit perfectly. I turned the key. The lock clicked open with a chilling finality. A wave of icy air rushed out, carrying with it the stench of something ancient and evil. The voices reached a crescendo, a chorus of inhuman screams. I pushed the door open. The room beyond was pitch black, a void that seemed to swallow the light. The voices were deafening, swirling around me, pulling me in. I stepped forward into the darkness. I felt something brush against my leg, something cold, slimy, inhuman. I screamed, but my voice was lost in the cacophony of the voices. Then silence. The voices stopped. The darkness receded. I found myself standing in the basement again, the iron door closed, the key still in my hand. I blinked, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Had it been a dream, a hallucination? Then I looked down. The locket was gone, and in its place, clutched tightly in my hand, was a handful of dirt. Cold, damp earth like the touch of a corpse. And then I heard it, a faint whisper close to my ear. "Welcome home."